We know that third grade is a pivotal year in reading instruction for students where they transition from learning to read to reading to learn. And so it's important that we give students the necessary foundations starting in those earlier grades to make sure that we're setting them up for success later on. In this video, we're going to be sharing all about how you can create a structured, systematic, and SOR-aligned lesson plan that align with authentic literature that are going to give your second and third grade students those foundations they need so that they can see success as they continue on in their schooling. Now, I'm Corey with Ascend Smarter Intervention, where we make research-based instruction both easy and accessible. And today, we're going to be sharing our lesson planning framework, so make sure to stick around where we'll share exactly where you can grab that and how you can use it to create your own lessons. So, without further ado, let's go on to our first step. Our first step is to outline the skills that you're going to want to include in your lessons. Now, we know that aligning to the science of reading requires that we have instruction hitting on phonological awareness, phonics, vocabulary, fluency, and comprehension. And we always like to align to that reciprocal process in writing as well. The next thing that you're going to want to do is you are going to want to build a skill progression. This is going to become your scope and sequence. So when you're thinking about your skill progression, you want to think about how the skills are stacking on to one another. So, for example, we want to take phonological awareness, phonics, vocabulary, fluency, comprehension, and writing, and create a stair step out of those to really think about what are the skills that we want to be targeting at each level. Now, for example, you could take a phonics progression and start from the very beginning, starting with things like consonants and short vowels, and working all the way up through stable final syllables, making sure that you have a stair-step progression that's hitting each of these concepts that students need to know explicitly. The next thing you'll want to do when you're putting your lesson plan together is you want to consider your students' needs. This will help you understand how much time you should be focusing on each area, because even though we need to be hitting on phonological awareness, phonics, vocabulary, fluency, and comprehension, that doesn't mean that we need to be spending equal amount of time on each of those areas. So we want to be thinking about our students' needs. So what are the specific goals for your students? Do they need extra work in word recognition, so that decoding or that phonics-based instruction? Do they need more support in vocabulary, comprehension? Knowing what your students need and where they're having the most difficulty will allow you to target skills appropriately for their individual needs. The next thing you'll want to be thinking about is timing. So when we put our lessons together, we like to break our books up into sections or individual lessons that create units, essentially, that will match the amount of time that we have with our students. So, for example, if we know that we've got 10 weeks with our students and we are going to be targeting each of these different components within that 10-week framework, we're going to build our scope and sequence so that that stair-step progression that we talked about fits into the number of lessons that we have. So we have an example here where you can see that we put together a 10-lesson framework for our Dingoes at Dinner Time, because these Magic Treehouse books are great. They always have 10 chapters in them. And so that allows us to have a framework that we can use while we're targeting each of those components. The last thing you'll want to do is pull your resources together. So again, we use a structure or a template so that we can follow the same framework just to make sure that our content is changing to align to each book, but that we're not having to reinvent the wheel every single time. We already know what a cause and effect lesson should look like. We can use those same skills and strategies as we build our next lesson, but we'll just want to make sure that we're pulling in content from our next book. So, for example, we've got some pictures here so you can take a look and see, what do some of those activities look like that are aligned with that authentic literature? And then we just swap out the question so that it's clear that everything's going to align perfectly to the book and that students are getting that structured and systematic lesson but also that it's aligned directly to the authentic literature that they love so that they can keep getting the same information. They're getting all that spiral review, but it always feels new and fresh because it's with the books that they absolutely love. So that's it. Hopefully that helps. If you're interested and want to jump in and grab all of our lesson plans that are already done, you can grab them in our 5 core components of literacy activity library. I'll also be linking to a blog where you can learn more about our 5-step process. And we hope you let us know if you have any questions at all. Make sure to click like and subscribe so you can be the first to know when we drop new videos with tips, tricks, and resources.